Okay.
Stef Zamoraono, how are you?
I'm pretty great, Gordon. I mean, that's such a weird question, right? During a pandemic, how
Yeah.
are you doing? And our usual response is, it's gone great. How are you supposed to answer that during a pandemic? Ask me again, Gordon, and I'll be more authentic. How am I doing?
Okay. Are you staying safe?
Oh, absolutely staying safe.
Well,
But
I
am
think
I
that's going to be a
staying
better question,
sane?
isn't it? Are you staying
Am I
safe
staying,
rather than
but
how
if
are
I'm,
you?
but am I, oh, that's a better question, right? But am I staying sane? Barely.
We'll get into it a bit. I want to talk to you about America because I've been to America. And I got to admit, Steph, I love the place. I couldn't wait to go back, and I've never been back. I was there in 2008 when the wonderful president, who I think I wish we had somebody like him over here, Barack Obama, was being was being elected. I know that's how badly. I was telling Jimmy, for those of you who don't know, by the way, Stef Zamoraono is, well, you're Jimmy's handler, aren't you?
Yeah, yeah, I am his handler. Oh my God, I love that term.
Jimmy
I
Dore's
am his
handler.
handler.
Yeah, I was talking to Jimmy, and I was saying how, um, we're talking all things America, and how it's pretty crazy over there at the moment, and it's got to be a test of your sanity, hasn't it? I mean, you've got to, as I explained to people, you've got basically this election that's coming up in
Right?
November is between somebody who, let's face it, half the time he lies, and the other half the time you can't make head and tail of what he's saying. Who
Are,
has
are you
got a
talking about
history? Yeah, exactly, and he's up against Trump,
Biden?
and that's how ridiculous it is. And you do such a great job at the Dore Show, explaining how somebody on the ground is really feeling about the situation. Because I know from my time over in America, of when that's how hoodwinked we are. I thought Barack Obama was a fantastic president, and I wished at the time we had somebody like that over here. But he as you guys explain a lot, he expanded from 2 wars to 7. He gave everybody a right-wing healthcare plan when he had a supermajority in the Senate and in the House. He could have passed Medicare for all. He didn't. Um, and when I look at our history, and I know this is going to sound terrible, because obviously we've got our own problems. Where our history was built on slavery, etc., and we've got a situation over here at the moment, Steph, where we have last night at the
Now,
prom.
where are you? Are you in Hawaii?
No, wish I was. I wish I was in Hawaii. I'm in the UK, darling. We have healthcare over here.
Oh, you have health care.
Yes.
And you still get in the streets. Okay, but you have health care. I get you.
Well, we get in the streets because we've got healthcare. I think that one of the reasons why you don't have healthcare in the United States is because otherwise you'll get in the streets. You
It's
can't get in the
oppressive.
streets if you're going to lose your healthcare, if you're going to lose your job, etc. Aren't you? Can you? Going to make it very difficult.
Yeah.
But we've got our own problems. I mean, we've got the last night at the proms over here is that they're not going to sing Rule Britannia, because obviously the first line is Rule Britannia. Britons never, never, never will be slaves, and that's a bit of a hot topic at the moment. We used to run the world. Everybody hated us when we ran the world as well. You're running the world now, and whereas we were naughty, you've been naughty as well in America. Your foreign policy is horrific, but it's the healthcare angle that really, and the education, that frightens me the most. And you've got this great military industrial complex, and you got everybody says, I watch CNN and MSNBC every now and then because it's my job, and they, even now, and on Fox, even now today, they will say how wonderful the economy's doing, and they're like the best economy ever. But you've got 45 million people about to get evicted or something
Uh,
like that.
that would double it. Yeah, definitely. I know we
This
were
is a
talking
military.
last week 23 million, but I certainly wouldn't disagree with 40 million, and
45
nobody seems to
I
be
heard.
responding to it.
So, I mean, it's a military industrial complex with a flag. I'm reminded of an Eddie Izzard joke when he turns up at some colonial country years ago, and like, is this your country? Oh yes. Do you have a flag? And whereas America, it's a military industrial contract with a flag, but you really don't spend a lot at home, do you? And you used to be. I was surprised when I was over there in America about how badly educated people were. And you used to be a teacher, didn't you, Steph?
Yeah, so I was
A
at
little
high
bit
school
about
English
why that is.
I was a high school English teacher for over 20 years, and I think the whole concept of public education is beautiful. That you want to raise the intellect of your society and your culture, and you want them to be literate, and you want to take the secrecy out of words on a paper, and you want people to be able to read stuff. Like the church, the Catholic Church decided, they'll start telling the Mass in English. They won't do it in Latin any longer. The people will actually be able to have greater access to, a Heavenly Father. And in school, we wanted to take kids out of the factories because we can look through, the Industrial Revolution, and you'd see these little kids working in factories, as if that's not still happening in the world and in the United States. To pretend that people in the fields picking our food aren't child labor is pretending that all the problems of society have been solved. So regarding education, I think it's a great idea. But Gordon, when I was teaching high school, Monday through Friday, I was in a classroom with 38 to 40 16-year-olds, not one class period, Gordon, 5 class periods. I was teaching on average 175 kids a day. And that would mean that probably I come in contact with 3 to 5 sociopaths, 5 to 10 psychopaths daily. And those aren't even including the administrators. Now that's funny. Remember the administrators, they're psychopaths, sociopaths, they're power hungry administrators. And all they really want to do is, what's your test score?
Yeah.
What's your test score? And there's a lot of money in the testing industry. And there's a lot of top-down instruction. And the evolution of, schools in the United States, how they've changed, sure they've changed, sure they have technology. They're all seated in rows.
Yeah.
They're all looking at one instructor. Finland has a wonderful model, not necessarily a perfect fit for our country, but they have 3 instructors with master's degrees. I believe they're all in a union. One teacher is instructing the kids. The other teacher is going through the classroom, seeing how learning is working for the kids. And then let's say you're the kid who's not getting it, or it's just not in your wheelhouse. You have the 3rd instructor who's doing meaningful one-on-one. And I can bet you Finland didn't have 38 kids in a classroom. And what I just want to add,
3 teachers, that'd be all right.
hey, there's a jobs program, America. There's a jobs program right now, and everybody in America has a great deal of anxiety because we're not able to work, but then our children are here at home, and our children are supposed to go online, watch their instructor for hours, and parents are being asked to sign in some companies a contract stating that they will not be giving any kind of parenting during their work hours while they're working at home. That's off the chart.
No way, because they're working from home. Because obviously people are shutting offices. This is what you're saying? They're having to sign stuff for the...
Some companies are requiring their employees to sign something that during my work time, I will not be doing any parenting. Are you kidding me? I mean, they're asking too much of the working class people. They're asking too much of, you have the essential workers. You have people that are, I'm not teaching anymore. I am very grateful. We started this company. We've been working very hard for years, both as performers and producers. And we were just very lucky and fortunate that Jimmy is fearless and sticks his chin out. And I'm
Yes, he
speaking of Jimmy
does.
Dore from the Jimmy Dore Show. And we would have conversations for years. And he would celebrate me as a teacher. He had a lot of pride with me being a teacher and championing the causes of teachers. And it's interesting that in the United States, how when George Bush was in office, it was called No Child Left Behind, and they passed legislation that if your school didn't hit a certain level of skills based on standardized testing, if your school didn't hit that mark, well, you're going to be reprimanded. And if you failed and if you lost points, if you were a school that did poorly, you know what they did, Gordon?
Took money
They
away.
took money away. They defunded programs for the struggling schools. So you have schools in Detroit, you have schools in Flint, Michigan, you have these schools that are struggling because of poverty or because of a disaster of being poisoned by your water, which that water has now poisoned these little kids who are developing, and they will have long-term brain development problems as a consequence from the lead poisoning. And they expect the schools in those communities to cure the sins of poverty in a classroom, when even the city council, the mayor, the school boards aren't serving the community and raising the community as a whole. How can a school solve the problem of poverty in a community, of lead poisoning in a community, in pollution in a community? So the schools are great. Schools are beautiful. Critical thinking is wonderful. But like we've done with everything, we've industrialized it.
Yeah.
And so it's not, come on, they take the arts away. They take the home economic courses away. They take the kinesthetic courses away, like wood shop, metal shop, drafting, anything with hands-on, except with the exception of like maybe pottery, if you're in a pottery course, but the idea of school is beautiful. We have tried to shove too many kids into a classroom, and we expect teachers to do far more than they can do. A kid would be sick in the classroom. A kid would have an emotional breakdown in the classroom. Families are breaking up. What kind of skills can we possibly give our kids right now? Kids who are in junior high, middle school, or high school, what can we give them in secondary school that are meaningful and will help them survive right now? What course would that be? I think it could be literature, it could be history. But my God, Martin, did you ever learn of the 1918 Spanish flu pandemic in the world?
We learned a lot about the Holocaust. We learned a lot about agriculture, farming. We learned a lot about Henry VIII. So he came up a lot. Didn't learn a lot about any other things. You didn't have a clue where Palestine was. It's amazing what they teach you in school and what is okay to go in the curriculum. But I mean, it is insane, isn't it? How that they've monetized students. They've done it with you've done it with prisoners over there. Let's face it, we're doing it to a certain degree over here with G4S and shipping our prison system off to companies who want to make a profit. And then all of a sudden the standard of prisons go down because you've handed it over to somebody who wants to make a profit and has to make a profit because he's got debt to pay. If you do that with prisoners and you do that with the school, and I know you've done it with charter schools over there, there's only one way. There's only one group of people that are going to suffer there, isn't it, Stef? And it's not going to be the people who are in the bullshit jobs. I'm reading a great book at the moment from David Graeber. You should all read it, on the amount of bullshit jobs there are out there. And those are the jobs that it seems, to me at least, that they've increased within the school system, the bullshit jobs, the box tickers, the administrative jobs, and there's less actually going into the teaching aspect of it, isn't there?
I'm mostly, online teaching it's a different critical thinking skill. It's a different skill, you know. So maybe 25% of kids who are going to be learning online really connect with it. That's where they are, right? What are you going to do with all these other kids who are social animals? People are social animals naturally. You know, this is great for some kids who are like, I don't want to be anywhere, and this really will help them maybe the next couple of years. But as far as like the animal of just socializing, I think we're gonna have long-term consequences with these kids.
Yeah, for
We're
sure.
gonna have you know, not to mention the broken homes that will come about this, not to mention the travesty of the economics and the homelessness that will escalate.
And the rates of depression as well, and teenage suicide, etc. It's going to go through the roof. I was talking to Gary Jones, who's like an expert in depression, the other day, and you know, I wish we had longer to talk about, because all of these people, you know, all these groups of people, youngsters, you know, people who are the disabled, especially, who maybe can't get out, etc. during this time, during COVID. These rates are going to go through the roof. And, you know, for instance, I'm thinking about somebody close to me who's a mother of 2 children. And she's got that situation right now where one of the kids, she's like, yeah, he's fine. He'll be fine. He's got his, you know, if anything, he's done even better because he's been left to his own advices over the last few months. But whereas the other kid, he's fell way behind because of this homeschooling. So, you know, there's certain kids who are going to excel at it, but then there's less of those, I would say, than there are that are going to be left behind. It's going to really exacerbate the problem over here, and especially over there, isn't it?
Yes. Okay, so let's just agree it's like a disaster. It's all a disaster. It's just a disaster, right? We're all agreed with that, you know, and we all know the horror stories of our good friends who are single moms, single dads, trying to manage, first, maintaining employment, hoping that the employment has health care in the United States, and then making sure, we have to pay for access to the internet. So sometimes, you know, how many computers does one family have typically? Everybody has their own computer? No, now kids have to use a phone. So now everybody has to buy a computer. Everybody has to have access, unless your work gives you that. Okay. So now a kid who's struggling, a parent who's struggling, what could they possibly do? Well, you know, I don't think there's any easy solution, but I bet you the kids will have innovations. And as a teacher, a part of the curriculum would be hey, you know what? Do you have a little brother and sister at home? Do you have a brother and sister at home? Okay. No, like if I were talking to kids as a teacher, if you have a little brother and sister at home, and this is freshman English or sophomore English, I want you to do me a favor, and I bet you're already doing this, but I'd like you to read to them for 15 minutes a day. I'd like you to read to them for 15 minutes a day. Brilliant. And I'd like you to talk to them about something you learned. Because I think one of the most important elements of these homes will be conversations about something new. And one thing that I read is, you have to create new traditions if you can. Mm-hmm. But Gordon, I see this family walking through my neighborhood every so often, and they're 3 beautiful little kids, and the dad is worn down. He's haggard. He doesn't want to say hello. I don't know if they have money, and he has these 3 beautiful kids that here now, if he's struggling and he and his wife are, you know, struggling, how important is learning to those kids right now? Learning is really important. We want them to go to school, but they can't. So what access are they going to have? So the poor are going to get poorer.
Left behind.
The poor are going to get less informed. And we're going to see a larger population of struggling class. And that's all because people are voting on 2 parties, and they won't jump ship, and they won't vote third party to scare the shit out of them. And there are people who are already saying, Joe Biden has my vote. No. I'm not shaming you because you want to vote for Joe Biden. What I want you to do is zip your lip, zip it. Say you don't get my vote. somebody calls you, no, I'm not voting. Nancy Pelosi came out today and she's like, well, I don't really think that Joe Biden should go ahead and I don't think Joe Biden should debate him. This is skullduggery. It's skullduggery. And I'm like, you're saying skullduggery, and she doesn't want Joe Biden to debate Donald Trump because Donald Trump is so bad.
No,
What
she
is
doesn't.
that?
She doesn't
What
want
is
Joe
she
Biden to
doing there?
debate Trump because Trump will make mincemeat of him.
And I don't tell Joe Biden that I said this, but they won't listen to me anyways. But I'm like,
it's a brilliant.
but Gordon, I have friends that I have dear family members, favorite people in my life that voted for Hillary Clinton, that voted for Donald Trump. And when I hear people say, on public radio, and they go, those Trumpers or those Trumpsters, I just go, why are you dividing us? Maybe I've done it, but I want to make sure it's by design. They want to divide my country. It's by design.
Yeah, they do it over here. They do it over here too. Not to the same extent. I mean, I do watch a lot of American news and whatever, just because I've been so interested in it, because it's so nuts. It's insane. At the same time, our Prime Minister was literally the butt of jokes because she said that the most outrageous thing that she'd done was run through fields of wheat. Your leader, your president, was a scandal because a porn star was on Anderson Cooper talking about how she spanked him on the ass with a copy of Woman's Weekly or something like that. It's incredible. It's honestly incredible. And it's a big show. That's the thing that I think I get from it more than anything. I've really tried to learn and understand politics over the last 4 years and try and understand, just really how important democracy is and how important my vote is. I spent all of my life not voting because I thought it's all bollocks. And then I educated myself and I started voting. And after 4 years, I've realized, no, I was right all my time. It's all bollocks. Right? It's all bollocks. It doesn't matter. I spent my entire life not voting. I started voting when I started doing this. And now I've realized, no, there is no point in voting. There's no point in, for instance, 2022 here, when we get another election, I'm going to vote for Keir Starmer, Sir Keir Starmer, who basically is doing more for Israel right now than he is for the United Kingdom. I'm going to vote for him? No, of course I'm not going to vote for him. Jimmy Dore, he says, doesn't he? The problem with the two-party system and the voting for the lesser of two evils is they can set it up that way. And that's the way it's set up right now. You've got a shit sandwich or Captain Douchebag, as South Park has said. And it's the kids who are going to get left behind. And that's the people who I really worry for, because, especially over here, I think we have our government, we've got a lovely little safety net, I think, for people, and they're going to look after people a little bit more, it seems, than they're going to look after people over there in America, because you haven't got much of the education system. We've highlighted some of the problems that you've got there, but the healthcare system. I want to tell you a story, Stef. I came over in America in 2008, and I didn't realize that you didn't have a healthcare system at that time. Didn't know. You're America. We've had one since 1948. Just after World War II. It's what we got out of World War II, basically. Because Clement Attlee, the guy who brought it in, is to this day thought of as one of our greatest prime ministers, just because he brought in that. That's all he did, really. I couldn't believe you didn't have it.
We had him then.
Oh, I met a guy while I was over there. I had a tragedy. I stopped in California while I was over there, and a tragedy happened. The person I stopped with shot himself. And he killed himself as a result of the financial crash, and he realized that he'd got a $160,000 mortgage on a house that was worth about $4.80 now, and he shot himself while I was over there. And I met one of his friends as a result of that. I would never have met her as met her otherwise, but I met her, and she was just amazing. And her husband had got some problems with his health, and he had some problems with, I think, his spleen years ago, and he went bankrupt as a result of it. And he was a great singer. This man was great singer. I mean, really rocked. I've seen him singing to 200-300 people and rock the place. He's incredible. And at the time, he'd got a job, not just singing, but he worked in one of these car spray places, you know, like where the booth would have to put the mask on and the spray panel, you know, that he sprays cars basically. And the reason he took the job was not because he needed the money, but his job as a great musician, great singer, didn't come with healthcare. And he had to have this job inside a car place, spraying with all the fumes and you know, messing with his vocal cords. And then about 5 years after, it's about 2013, he caught cancer. And even though he'd got that job, he took that job for 5-6 years, and he'd gone bankrupt as a result of, you know, his health and whatever. He still had to raise $6,000 on GoFundMe for is it a copay, you call it?
Mm-hmm.
You know, they got like a $6,000 minimum charge or something like that. You pay the first $6,000. And he had to raise this money even before they treated him, because otherwise he was just going to die of cancer. This is no way to treat a nation, is it, Steph? It would be easier for me to rattle off the amount of countries right now in the world who don't have healthcare, because I think it's only about 8 of them, honestly. Some sort of universal healthcare system.
See, look at the list we're on. We're on the short list. So the USA, you know, we're on the short list where we're digging our heels in, not to take care of the people, but to take care of the insurance companies and big pharma. That's the loyalty of our government.
It drives. It's like I struggle to know where to start with it, because I mean, for instance, last night I was watching the Jimmy Dore Show. He was on live. It was like 2 o'clock in the morning. I was watching because I'm an avid fan. And I screamed out loud, laughing at the line, "Look at you, you fucking 50 millionaire. You stupid 50 millionaire." But you've got rich people right now who've got healthcare on Twitter in America, chastising those who were poor, who are screaming, "Please give us healthcare like the rest of the world has. It's a pandemic. We've lost our jobs. We need something." And they're telling poor people, "No, you can't have it because it's not succeeded anywhere else," when every other country in the world it succeeds in.
It hasn't succeeded, Gordon. Come on. I read on Twitter. I just read on Twitter. It hasn't succeeded. I read even it hasn't. I mean,
you want me to go outside and get run over? I'll take my phone, I'll go outside, I'll get run over as an experiment, see whether I get treated and how much it costs me at hospital.
Yeah, I mean, when we started this business, I've had healthcare with my teaching, being a teacher all these years. I've had healthcare. And guess what? That's one of the reasons why I became a teacher, because I needed stability. And, you know, it gave me stability, a consistent, you know, experience. And I loved teaching. I loved engaging kids. I had some great days. I had some tough days in the classroom. I had overwhelming days. I have had days that I've been really inspired and days that I'm like, oh my God, I'm glad that's over. But I had healthcare and I had a union, and I was a union representative. And I would have people who worked at my school. 80% of my school were union members. And I would have these teachers that would teach the higher level coursework called advanced placement. They call them AP courses, college level courses. And this one teacher would turn to me and goes, "Why should I join the union and get paid just as much as the worst teacher gets paid?" And I'm like, huh? I don't understand that thinking. And I would say, hey, why don't you go test your theory out at a charter school? Why don't you go be a teacher at oh, you don't want to go to a charter school because you want guaranteed work hours. You don't want to work on the weekend. Oh, you like your summer off. Oh, wait a minute. You like also the health care that your union has already gotten you. So, when somebody works in a public school and they're not union, to me, I'm like, get out.
Yeah.
Don't, and I'm not saying unions are perfect. Wherever people are, there's imperfection. But the reason why people are able to have a better livelihood as a teacher in the United States is because of unions. And unions, there used to be 33% of Americans were union. We're in a union. Now
Yeah.
it's less than 11%.
That was by design. They really crushed it during it was Thatcher and Reagan, wasn't it, that really crushed down with this neoliberal experiment on unions, both over in America and over here. The union membership over here went through the floor as well. And it's not surprising that it's not surprising that as the union membership fell through the floor, so did the left. And the left parties, both over in America and over here, just shifted towards the right. I mean, they're not even close to being in the center at the moment. The Labour Party and Democrats aren't. They're almost centre-right parties. The both of them, obviously, Democrats more so than Labour. But as bad as Labour are, they would never think about selling off the NHS. Your party over there, they're doing everything they possibly can to not give you healthcare, aren't they?
I mean, I remember when Kamala Harris came out, and she's like, I'm doing, surprise, I'm going to do Medicare for all. I'm surprising my people. And I'm like, you're surprising your people on a policy that's important to the American public, that you're springing it on your team. And then she backed away from it. And now she's the running mate of Joe Biden, who said if it comes across his desk, he will veto it. In the middle of a pandemic, do they want to win? Do they really want to win?
No, they want to, but they don't care if they don't. If they don't, it's okay. They want to, but if they don't, it's okay. I mean, if they came out for Medicare for all, Steph, they'd clean up, wouldn't they?
Either one would clean up.
That's the worry.
Whoever comes out, how are you not going across that finish line, Donald Trump, going, fucking, I'm doing it. Donald Trump didn't want to win. Donald Trump was creating a network, I thought, with Roger Ailes when he was running.
I've
And
heard
I
that.
thought they were thick as thieves, and they were like, okay, we're going to create it. And did you see how sad Donald Trump looked and Melania looked when he accepted that he was
watched it, and she did not look happy at all. I really did. I watched that speech. I was just as horrified as everybody else was.
I liked her speech the other night. I watched a little bit of it. I watched it to the part where she goes, I love my husband he is the 43 president. I'm like, did she say 43? She said 43. I just thought I did think it was charming. I like her accent. I like everything. But then she sold her soul. Was it worth it? I don't know. So I think something's dead inside of Melania. I mean, it has to be.
I you know what? I always like to try and say good things about people before I say anything bad. She's gorgeous.
Oh, she's so soft on the eyes.
So beautiful.
I love her fashion sense.
Yeah.
Fashion sense, she can buy anything.
Let
me talk about that really quickly about fashion.
Go
on. Fashion and fashion magazines and all of that stuff terrorizes the image of people.
Yeah.
And you know, when you see Fashion Week, and I'm like Fashion Week, really? What do you mean Fashion? You know, everybody goes and looks at the new, like all of this crazy costumes that, you know, that is never going to make it, you know, to the stores. Macy's, you know, store that I would go to, but not, you know, like, I think fashion, I think it has, you know, it is the complete representation of the exploitation of capitalism,
Yeah.
and how it's captured the minds and spirits of people, when in fact, instead of like, yeah, I don't buy fashion magazines. I don't, because I remember, like, when you go to the doctor's office, when you used to go to the doctor's office and take something for, I would look at the fashion magazine, I'm like, I wanted things, and I'm like, oh, I don't want things. I don't want things. I want to get rid of stuff. I want to like completely. Haven't you found that, like, during the pandemic? Get rid of everything.
Oh,
What the madness?
you know, you say that. I've had 2 skips delivered. I've filled this. I've got a tiny little council flat. I have filled 2 skips since I've been here. I've gone through all of the cupboards. I've got got rid of so much junk. It's amazing the amount of crap that just crap, and clothes as well. My t-shirts, you say fashion, my t-shirt, £2.33 these t-shirts are. That's about what, $3? That's how much I spend on my t-shirts. And I was pissed off because they've gone up recently from £2 to £2.33. They've gone up by 15%. That's inflation for you. I used to spend a lot of money on clothes. I remember buying a really expensive pair of jeans years ago, but it's not until I found out that even the most expensive pair of jeans, the Versace, whatever the name is, Gucci or Gucci or whatever it's called, they've still only got $4 worth of denim in them. Even if it's $400, $1,000, there's still no more than $4 worth of denim in those jeans. And once I realized that, I think my brain went, well, why the fuck am I buying jeans for $200 when I could buy them for 20 quid then? And
well, I don't know. Did you feel like $1 million in those $200 jeans?
You know, that's the thing. They felt nice, and I felt nice wearing them, but it's bullshit, isn't it?
But I also think they lasted long.
They lasted long because I really looked after them, though, and I didn't wear them because they were like 150 quid. You know, I didn't look after it. I think I've forgotten what happened to them in the end. I think I caught them on something up to no good. But I mean, I think they only lasted a bit longer than normal, but that's because they were so expensive. I hardly wore them. They were bestest jeans.
Well, I've kind of challenged myself. It's a crazy challenge. But I mean, I bet you when it comes right down to it, most of us wear the same thing. Like you have 10 things that you probably wear all the time. It's just like your go-to, especially in a pandemic. So my challenge to, because I was talking to a friend and she's a therapist, is I've been trying to like wear things that I usually don't wear, like just start wearing it, right? And then I'm like, okay, I did it. I still don't think I like it. You know, fold it up, hold it close, give it to the universe, right? Something like that. But my one girlfriend said, start dressing up for dinner. Make it special. Instead of like, okay, I've been wearing this t-shirt all day long, but start making it special, because we're in this for a while.
Yeah. I don't think it's going to go anywhere. They keep. Okay, we talked about schools. Where are you on reopening schools? Are they going to reopen them soon in America, or?
So yes, they have. Here, I know. So yes, they have reopened in different regions of the United States. Right here in the state of California, our area is mandated to teach online. So, but in Orange County, which is an hour away, hour south, they have open schools. I haven't talked to anybody whose kids are going.
Orange County is like Trumpian, Republican. That's your Orange County. The wives of Orange County. I remember that's a proper gun-toting Hollywood wives sort of area.
Yes.
And they've opened those recently.
Yes, but schools just opened about last Wednesday, a week ago. And my girlfriends that I speak to, a Spanish teacher and some English teachers, they're teaching online, but they teach high school. And I was like, okay, tell me what your schedule is going to be. And in short, each class period, so 3 periods a day. Usually there's 6 periods in a day, but here there are 3 class periods in a day, and they're 80 minutes a class period. But the kids only have to be online instructionally for 30 minutes of that 80. That, let me say this, that's logical as a teacher, because the first 20 minutes of class, you will be able to engage your students.
Yeah, and then
20 minutes,
and
then it's out. And so I have 30 minutes to connect with my kids, take the attendance, because you have to take the attendance because money's attached to attendance.
Yeah.
And their grade will be attached to attendance. So, you know, kids, we've got to get them to come to class. But I tell all my girlfriends, I'm like, don't sweat it. Don't sweat it. This is all new. You're going to do it wrong. You're going to do it right. But just engage your classes the way you normally do. But there are all crazy things that happen. You know, like in a Zoom, teachers get, what is it called? They get bombed. They get Zoom bombed or zombed or whatever. Like all of a sudden a teacher would let somebody in her classroom, you know, in the waiting room, ding, and then suddenly something flashes on screen.
Somebody with
like
a cock
penis. And, you know, the teacher doesn't know what to do. Kids are horrified. Parents are writing complaint letters. And I'm like, oh, I hope if I were teaching right now, I would have a sense of humor. You know, I'm lucky because I have a studio and I have lights and I could do different things. But honestly, I think my friends were working longer because it's so new teaching online and trying to change everything that you normally would do to engage kids. Like you would do like, all right, Gordon and Stef, why don't you talk about Great Expectations in the first chapter, what you just read by Charles Dickens? Why don't you turn and talk to?
Well, it was the worst of times and it was the best of times. And that's about all I fucking know.
But you know, it would be the whole thing of like, there's a lot of independent learning for these kids.
That was a tale of twin cities, you see?
Yeah, it's all right. Nobody needs to be tested online.
Sorry, go on.
But I think teachers, like, I bet you there are going to be some great innovation during this time. But I hope they learn how to share it instead of somebody in South Carolina, breakthrough, somebody in North Dakota, breakthrough, somebody in California, great stuff, but nobody talks to each other.
They'll probably fucking patent it and try and make money from it. You know what they're like. They probably will.
Well, you know what? They're gonna look for how ways to test kids more. That's what this is gonna come down to.
There's a good opportunity though, isn't there, here? And this is one of the reasons why I think you and Jimmy are so, you know, real advocates for getting out there and getting in the streets and really just you know, protesting and really, you know, trying to, I mean, obviously not in the streets as much as the moment, but at least protest, call up and get involved in, you know, and try and take back your democracy, because you haven't got one. One of the ethoses beyond your show is, I mean, we're barely hanging on to ours over here, and it's a bloody fight. But you haven't got one in America. You haven't got a democracy. I watched Barack Obama the other night, and I was cringing as he was cooing over, you know, democracy's at stake. And it's like, your democracy, you haven't got one. You on the Jimmy Dore Show, you talk about a Princeton study in 2013. That showed that no, you were not a democracy. And I'm not one of those people who are just going to say, no, actually, you're a constitutional republic. No, I'm not one of those wankers. What you are is an oligarchy. And let me explain what this Princeton study, because I looked into it, this Princeton study. I did some research, and it was based on 1,800 polls, 1,800 polls over a 20-year period on a wide range of subjects. And some of the subjects, some of the bills that came forward had 0% approval. And that means nobody liked them. And I'm thinking there was one recently that passed, and that was Ajit Pai. It was 6% approval. It was the something to do with the internet.
The internet, right.
6%, and that passed, and it had 6% approval. But then you've got other ones that have got 100% approval, and it didn't matter. It doesn't matter with those 1,800 polls whether it was 0% or 100%. There was still between an 18 and 35%. It was roughly 30% chance of the bill passing. You add money, or you add special interest, you add lobbyists, and the amount of money pumped into it, the amount of the chance of the bill passing went up, 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 up exponentially. That is the very definition of an oligarchy. You haven't got a democracy. I spoke to Jimmy on this, and he was like, yeah, vote harder. You can't vote your way out of this system. You can't vote Joe Biden and expect anything different. You're not going to get it. And him and Kamala are saying, you're not going to get it as well. So you're going to have to take back your democracy. And isn't it inevitable that you're going to end? Dylan Ragland, I've heard him say this. He thinks you're going to get Medicare for all and a UBI out of this. Can you see something like that?
I think when I hear Dylan Radigan sound positive, I really kind of, I would rather defer to him on that positive note. You know, like, are we really going to get a UBI and Medicare out of it? What's the hitch?
Well, the problem is capitalism has really dropped the ball, and it didn't take much to make its hands slippery, because this is the third COVID outbreak we've had. This
expensive ball that capitalism dropped. I think that's what it was. It was just expensive, right?
Yeah, those face masks they would have had to stockpile to, you know, it would have cost, I don't know, as much as a Patriot missile that they drop on the heads of Yemeni children. I mean, you got to go with the bomb, Steph. Got to go with the bomb.
Yeah, I know. Every time, we would rather go with bombs to spread democracy than have healthy people. That's what we really want.
What is it? Because obviously 6,000 miles away, it's difficult for me to get, you know, sort of like the feeling from the ground in America. I mean, we see at the moment, you know, I saw a picture today of a CNN anchor with his microphone like that, standing there, and there's a caption underneath that says mostly peaceful. Mostly peaceful protests turn fiery, or something like that, and the building behind him is literally on fire. Is it like this all across America, or is it just, you know, in pockets?
I'm gonna say, you know, the coverage would show that it's in pockets.
Yeah.
So that's all I can really respond to, that it's in pockets. You know, I live in Pasadena, outside of LA, and there was a recent shooting of a young Black man in Pasadena, and I believe that happened a month ago. And so about 2 weeks ago, the city council had a meeting and they just shut it down. They were done with everybody. They were done. They didn't want to have any kind of community conversation. And I guess it was so intense, they did have one the other night, and it lasted for several hours. Good. So what's happening is, during this crisis, people are getting informed, connected, and what else are, you know, when the Black Lives Matter protests began years ago, you would see this young, vibrant group of people coming together. And again, we saw that, you know, during the advent of these awful murders and these, you know, the militarized police force that want to keep us oppressed and victimized and tormented and at the whim of the police department. And if you are a good cop, why did you become a policeman? What was it about it that would attracted you? Because certainly you didn't want to be a fireman. You didn't want to be an EMT, a firefighter, excuse me, my ladies. You know, I don't know why you want to join the police force. You know, what jobs are there that I can have a gun? Oh, that's the one. So that's really going to appeal to a certain sensibility. So as far as these, the protests that are happening, and hey, you know what? Wow, I wonder if the CIA ever infiltrates these protests and escalates them in any way
No, they wouldn't
divide
do
the
that.
country. Would CIA ever? It's almost like you would see it in a movie, but it couldn't possibly happen.
They wouldn't do that with Occupy Wall Street or
Would
the
would a
Black
police
Panthers
force,
or
right? Or would the police force actually set their own department on fire?
I was watching.
So like a lot of people in our country may not be able to weigh those things. And I'm not saying they're all true, they're all false or whatever. But the fact of the matter is, literature has exposed us to years of the nefarious nature of mankind. We've seen it, we've seen them exploit, we've seen them torture, we've seen all of this. I used to watch films when I was a kid, World War II Nazis and torture. And you would see the Nazi walk in the room and you're like, holy shit, some awful stuff is going to happen right now. Because they tortured people.
Yeah.
So now when I look at these films, I can just put a policeman's badge on that Nazi character. So why are we such a nefarious, bloodthirsty, militarized culture that just wants to torture, torment, exploit? It's amazing that there's even a middle class in the United States, because the divide is getting greater and greater and greater. And where are the jobs? I have 2 girlfriends. One husband, he has been out of work for 8 years. The other husband ran a production company and he would do all the lighting design for Pepperdine University and all the events. And every May, June, July, he was busy because he was doing all these events. He has no job. He ran his own business. He had no job now. He went and applied at Home Depot. They didn't hire him. He's 60 years old. They didn't hire him. They hired the 22-year-old. He was overqualified. And he was happy that he had a good interview.
This is why I'm hopeful when I listen to people like Dylan Radigan, and they say that you're going to get a UBI and Medicare for all out of this, and he says I think he says it's like the natural progression as to where this leads, or something like that. I'm hoping that that's the case, but they're obviously.
You know what I want? This is what I want. I want a company like Amazon to be broken up. And I want the people that work at Amazon to be employed at a livable wage, because the astronomical income that this guy is making off of the blood, sweat, tears, and urine of his employees is off the chart. It's like more radical than Robin Hood. Remember Robin Hood, and you watch Robin Hood and you're like, they would come down and they would take all your money and then he would stick up for the good guys. And you're like, that's great. Where's our Robin Hood?
I know. Where this is what
Robin Hood was a radical, and we all loved Robin Hood. We loved that he was taking on all the oligarchs and fucking them and taking their money and giving it to the poor. This is a centuries and centuries of the depravity of mankind. I loved teaching Great Expectations. I love teaching that because Dickens really examined the classism and the cause of poverty. And he knew that how you were born, what wealth you were born into, you would be able to sustain that unless something crazy happened. But for the most part, the zip code that you're born into, the area code that you're born into, that's where you're going to live and die. And where's the access? Access is even less than it was 20 years ago. In the United States. It has been depleted just in 20 years, just wiped out access to a different lifestyle.
It's strange. I've had this conversation many times with my fiance. We talk about this sort of stuff. We're really boring. And we talk about how, all we are, all each person is really is just, a result of the experiences that they have had. So, for instance, whenever, there was a terrorist attack on London Bridge, this is just one example. There was a terrorist attack. We try and be empathic and try and look at things from what would push that person to go down that route. You have to understand that this is somebody that's probably been indoctrinated in some sort of Wahhabism, you know, etc. And this is what's formed sort of his viewpoint on life and his warped viewpoint on life. And you know, how many people are going to be growing up right now in America radicalized as a result of because we say that I have this expression that the genie's out of the bottle now with information, and that being ignorant and being a bigot now is a choice. In years gone by before the internet, you know, we didn't have information at our hands. We didn't have it at our fingertips. You literally had to go to a library to check anything. Now we have the answers to everything that we've ever wanted and ever wished for, and a lot of questions that we shouldn't really ask at all at our fingertips. And you know, I think this is what's really thrown a fly in the ointment, in the fact that people are just educating themselves on all the horrific shit that they're doing in our name, both in the foreign policy, especially in America and in the United Kingdom, because we keep following you guys all around the world doing coups in Venezuela and Syria and Iran and attempted coups all over the place. And we're hanging on to your coattails all over. You know, I'm hopeful that we're coming to the end of this, Stef. I'm hopeful that this is going to stop, and eventually the governments are going to realize we can't continue doing this, because our own people are going to rip us to shreds if we carry on, because they're educating themselves. Do you get that sense in America that people are just getting more informed, or is it wishful thinking?
Oh, Gordon, I really hope you're onto something. I really hope that is it, you know, because I was like thinking about it and was, I'm thinking of a family down the street, and I'm thinking about that they've had run-ins with the police. I'm thinking about that there's a young woman who has a newborn child that lives there. I'm thinking about that there are young kids that live in that home. I don't know how radicalized that struggling family can ever become because of the walls of poverty closing in on them and the idea of survival, right? I drive through the streets. My girlfriend lives in Los Angeles near Hollywood. She's lived there all her life. She's driving down the street and she's seeing more homeless people, more tent cities that are being built on an otherwise neighborhood street that she would frequent and walk, and her family's business used to be there. She's seeing businesses boarded up. So we're seeing, you know, just driving in Pasadena, we don't really go out. We're self-quarantined, so we don't go out. We don't even do takeout food. So we've just, you know, because we both have underlying health conditions, and we just want to be safe. And my mom is 80 years old, and so we socialize with her.
Steph, one of my friends' moms died of COVID. Somebody in my family actually runs a care home, so I know how badly overrun. I had a holiday recently, and I met a nurse from the NHS on holiday, thousands of miles away. You know, people are saying, I have this joke where, like, 1 in every 10 people that I speak to about COVID don't believe it's true, and the other 9 people are certain that they've had it at some point in the last 6 months. But I met this nurse, and to anybody who are like COVID is fake and it's not real, I defer you to this nurse I met. She had caught it on the front lines in the NHS working against, and she was on holiday actually recuperating from it, and she knew that she was safe because she had the antibodies. But she was a nurse who the rest of her life now, she's got 50% scarring on her lungs, on her internal organs. This is something that she's going to have to live with, and her breathing is going to be severely disrupted later on in life. This is an NHS nurse, one of our heroes. It's terrible. It's terrible. And she says that, she said to me, I said, how bad is it in the emergency rooms, the TV? She said the TVs, the television, are doing reverse propaganda on it. It's way worse than you're hearing, way worse. And, you know, I could see in her eyes, just, she was frightened, you know. This is somebody who's been battling this disease and fighting against it. And I don't know where I went and why I brought that up. I don't know why I brought that.
Well, we were talking about, do we have hope? Do we think that we're going to get past this, and will people be likely to be radicalized? I think a pandemic if it doesn't radicalize you to get health care for everyone, I don't know what possibly could. I don't know how far your head has to be in the sand to look at this healthcare disaster and not just say, somebody who's 28 years old, 28. So you can, right now, you can stay on your parents' health care until you're 26. If your parent kept their job.
Yeah, if your parents, and if your parents are obviously well off, if your parents are poor, then they've got no health care, neither have you.
Yeah. So I like you're hopeful. I like that you're hopeful. I love it. It gives me hope. It gives me hope when Dylan Radigan says UBI. I'm trying to figure out, you know, when I think of UBI, I just get the sense that they're going to figure out, if we give you $2,000 a month, that $2,000 a month is going to go somewhere like your health care. You know, like it's going to go in one pocket, out the other. Like, I think we need a guaranteed income. And I think, you know, there should not, I don't understand how Jeff Bezos, I don't understand how the Waltons who own Kmart, I don't understand how these people, what is it, 8 people in, you know, in our country have more wealth than the 90%. It sounds like the disparity is awful. Like, was it 8 families that run our country, that hold the wealth of our country? How is that going to work? And where are all those people? They have health care, they have bunkers, they have everything they want. How much wealth do you need when people are suffering?
Richard Wolff has a statistic. Dr. The great economist Richard Wolff, he has a statistic. This is probably less now, but it was 72. The richest 72 people on Earth have more money than the bottom 50% of the entire planet.
And they still want to exploit people. They're sociopaths, they're psychopaths, and there's not going to be any justice served to them. So I don't understand how anybody who's a grown-up could say, I'm voting for Biden because I hate Trump, and that's it. Zip it. Don't say anything. Say, come get my vote with Medicare for all. Come get my vote.
But how is voting for Biden going to make an average person's life any better? It's not.
Yes, it is. He's going to sound nicer than Donald Trump. And we need somebody who will sound good and nice in the presidential office. That's their thinking.
You got to do something to take this democracy back. It is funny to me when I listen to people like Joe Biden and the Democratic debate, the one where Tulsi wasn't on there, the one that they didn't let her on because she destroyed.
That was on March 15th, that debate. And Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders both told people to go to the polls that next Tuesday.
During the pandemic. Mm-hmm. And people died as a result of it.
They both said to go.
People died after going to voting in line. You know.
So what I think ultimately we are trying to take it back. I think this Sunday there's going to be a convention. It's called the People's Party Convention, and we're doing that this Sunday. We're going to be live streaming it from the Dore Show.
Great.
So we're going to be doing that. I think it starts at 1 p.m. Pacific time, but then I believe the speakers go up about 4 p.m. Pacific time. I'm not sure of the schedule. I'll try to tweet it out when I get more info about it. But you can see the People's Party campaign right on our channel. And if you're asleep because of different, country you're in, I'm sure we'll air it in portions too. So we're going to do that this Sunday. And, when you say, what can we do? I think people are trying to come together and say, well, you're a libertarian, you're a Green Party person, you're non-affiliated, you're a Republican, you're a Democrat. Come to this convention. Let's talk about the issues that will really help us make progress for the regular person, for, you know, the next generation.
Yeah, well, we need more of that, Steph, because, you know, we talked a little bit earlier about how they divide us and they try and keep us divided. And there's something that I keep hearing when I listen to American news, especially. It's the left and the right, and I hear it all the time. And even people like Carl Kalinske, who I think is the best
Great
political commentator
Yeah.
in America by bar none. He's brilliant. Even he, too much for my liking, talks about the left and it's too much for the right. And it's like, well, who are the left and the right? Because, you know, I'm quite conservative with some things, but I'm quite liberal with others. You know, there's an old Chris Rock joke there somewhere. I'm liberal with prostitution. I'm conservative, you know. We're all a little bit of, you know, no views. I'm not going to align with your views totally. I don't align with my fiance's views totally. It's not surprising. She's a crazy lefty, but in that bottom left-hand corner somewhere, lefty anarchist. But my theory is that they divide us and they split us up into this left and right to keep us fighting, because over trivial things as well. And you know, Kyle talks about the Overton window, and you can have vicious discussion between whether we should drop 100,000 bombs on Syria or whether we should drop 10,000 bombs on Syria. And you can argue all you want about how many in between, but there can be nobody on there saying, well, maybe we shouldn't drop any bombs at all. You know, they allow vigorous discussion in between this, in between those two parameters. And they keep us divided like this because if actually we did get together, like you're going to this weekend, we would realize that actually we agree with each other, left and right, on about 90% of the issues. It's only the small gray areas. It's only when you go down the list that actually we disagree a lot on. And a lot of the time we don't necessarily disagree. You know, I hear the lefties the left want to take away your guns. That's not true. I know plenty of lefties in America who have guns and actually really do think it's a good idea. I'm actually not that. I'm one of them. And my friend shot himself, and he would still be alive today had there not been a gun in the house. My point is, we're not left. We're not right. We're a multitude of opinions, all of us. And if we communicate with each other in, you know, long-term, long-form conversations like this, where we're actually listening to each other, that's how we're going to get out of this. Because these bastards who are running things, they're not going to fix it, are they, Steph? The only people who are going to fix it are us. And we're the ones who are going to get together. We're going to have to get together at a local level. We're going to have to get together at a community level and a town level and a city level. And we're going to have to take this back from them, aren't we?
And that's what makes them really uncomfortable about these protests. And that's why the media has to vilify what's going on in the protests. And that's why there has to be this escalation of militarized force during these protests, because it looks awful. It looks like, oh my God, what's happening? There's a war zone happening. And that's by design. That's the theatrics of the militarized police force. They want to scare the shit out of you. Yeah. They're not protecting me. And people can say, oh, you know, but how about all these businesses that, you know, yeah, nobody's advocating that these businesses that are in like downtown Chicago should be destroyed or boarded up. But guess what? You know what those businesses also have? They have insurance.
Yeah. I can imagine there's a few of those businesses who were like, yeah, please go on. You'd be doing me a favor because my business is going under.
Right.
I can imagine that there's a few of them are like, we're not going to open otherwise.
And that's the whole thing right now, that there should be a guaranteed income for people, because if you have the money to bail out the banks and you have the money to bail out Wall Street and you have the money to explode our military budget and explode the prison industrial complex, well, you know, people need money in their pockets so they can put money in the economy. And that's why we need a guaranteed income, because the economy thrives. And without that economy thriving, all these small businesses are going to go under. And then what?
Yeah, they're going to go, and my worry at the moment is America a bit, and over here to a certain degree, the government are picking winners and losers as to who's going to win and who's going to come out of the other end.
I had a
And
kid. I had a kid recently, a young man that we were working with, and we were talking about literature. And he goes, what did you think about the Hunger Games? I'm like, oh, I thought it was great. He goes, yeah, I thought it was ridiculous. And I'm like,
stick around, mate.
listen, Gordon, I've had a lovely time today. I'm
Brilliant.
going to go and relax a little bit. This is my day off, and so I got to spend time with you, Gordon, on my day off.
Oh, I feel I'm honoured. I really am. I've really enjoyed it, Steph. You, Jimmy, Ron, and Graham, everybody at the Jimmy Dore Show. You've kept me sane. I know, and a lot of other people around the world with your great work, and we really appreciate you, Stef Zamoraono. Thanks so much.
Gordon, thank you.
Awesome.
This was a blast.
Take care.